Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we have a special guest with us today that we got the privilege of meeting at the Cherokee Ultra that we put on in July, Mr. Matt Cook. You'll notice we have another Matt with another beard ready to roll here. We had Matt on the podcast a couple weeks ago and had to redo this entire podcast, not because of Matt's fault, but because of David. So we got Matt back on here. We're doing take two. But Matt's got a really inspiring story that we just felt like needed to be shared. It's truly inspirational to hear the things that Matt went through, considering 3 years ago, Matt was almost completely paralyzed, basically from the mouth down, I believe. Is that correct, Matt? And
Yeah. At one point I lost movement in my face. And
so this amazing athlete comes out and takes first place in the Cherokee 70K, absolutely just crushes the course. Now, I will say it was not easy because he had Hank Hepperly chasing him the entire course, but Matt just ran a solid race all the way through. Just amazing performance. You know, it's not an easy trail to run. Brand new course, didn't know what to expect, and he absolutely just come out and crushed it. So, Matt, we want to share your story. So if you don't care, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
like you said, my name's Matt Cook, and I ran a little bit cross country in high school. Graduated high school in 2005. Didn't really run much after that, and then I think it was back in 2019. Place I was working at put on they had a 5K for everybody to do at work, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. And I signed up for it and got my wife to come along with me. We were at the start line, and I was just going to walk it with her. And I looked over at her, and I felt the energy from the start line. It's a local 5K called Cherry's Run here in Lebanon. It's actually coming up September 14th. And I said, yeah, I'm going to have to take off. This is really exciting. Kind of brought back a lot of memories, and it was just awesome. So I took off, and then that kind of got me back interested into running. And then I would start running every now and again here and there, and I've done every Sherry's run since then in September. Anyways, come August 2021, I was wanting to do the Music City Rock and Roll Marathon here in Nashville. It was postponed that year to November, I believe. And so I was trying to train for that. I didn't actually sign up, wasn't committed, but I was like, I want to do this because I'd seen people doing it every year and like, why am I not doing this? I need to do this. It's like a bucket list kind of deal. And it was real hot that year in August, and I was just running one day before work, going up a hill in the hot heat, and something was off. Felt super tired. I was struggling to get up the hill. Like I was like an old man going up the hill. It took everything I had. I was like, all right, just keep going. And noticed a lot of numbness and tingliness in my hands. And so, anyways, I won't go into that completely just now, but I got GBS, and I was hospitalized for a little over a month. I was able to get out of that, and really that whole experience with GBS and being hospitalized and everything really was the spark I needed to get me back into running. And so ever since then, after recovering and everything, I've really gotten into running and been into running. I've ran 3 marathons, the Rock and Roll Music City Marathon 3 different times. I've done 300 milers. I've done Strolling Gym 40 miler twice. I just did obviously the Cherokee with you guys. And I might be missing a couple other races, a lot of short distance races just with the Tennessee State Parks running tour. And so I've been running basically ever since the beginning of 2022, and I just love it. So that's kind of where everything started and how I got into running in a nutshell.
That's so So how long of a break did you end up taking from running the first time? Like when you finished high school and you said you took a break and then kind of got back into it. How long was that break?
Mm, well, I would say a good probably at least 10 plus years. I
Oh,
graduated in
wow.
'05, so yeah, I didn't really run any. If I did, it was very seldom.
Oh, 10 years. That's a long time not to run.
Yeah, yeah, I just took it easy and just did everything else in life, work and family, and and I don't know
Yep.
why, but when I got back into it, I was like, "Where's this been?" So I
Yep.
enjoyed it, getting back into it.
Well, and then how long were you back into it before, GBS kicked it, or, before you got diagnosed and ended up having to go to the hospital?
Uh, well, like I said, it was September 2019 that I did that 5K, and I wasn't very serious running consistently um, until about 2021. Before I got GBS, I would say there was a good solid 6 to 8 months of me running up before the GBS in August of 2021. I remember going to the local park here in Lebanon, Don Fox Community Park, and they have a big loop. I remember the first time I ran 13 miles there, just practicing, training and everything. And I was like, oh wow. And I remember having knee problems and, just getting into running and getting my body adapted to it and everything. But yeah, about 6 to 8 months before all that went down. And then of course that happened and put me out for a few months. So
So tell us how did that come about? Like, how did you first experience any symptoms? How did you know that you needed to go to the hospital? Like, how did that timeline develop, and what were your symptoms in the beginning?
yeah, yeah, it was scary. I was working night shift at that time and I remember being at work and I started to notice the tingly and numbness in my toes and fingertips in the beginning, and it slowly started to work its way up. And it was the last day of my work shift that I had this long run before, or I had a run on a hot day before work. That's why I was running the day I went in at nights. And I knew I felt off, but I didn't think much of it. I was like, okay. And then that night at work, I was like, all right. I started the tingliness in my toes and my fingertips started to become more prominent and kind of getting working its way up. And I was like, this is weird. And when I got off work that night or that morning, I just felt awful and started to get real bad headaches. Couldn't sleep very well, and it was getting worse to where I was having a hard time walking even. And I remember my parents, they were staying in their RV at Defeated Creek here in Tennessee. And I remember just staying with them. And 'cause I was scared, I was telling my mom, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I think something's wrong. I think we need to go to the hospital. And she's like, well, maybe we can make it through the night. And so she convinced me to just make it through the night, see how I felt in the morning. And all that night, I had awful headaches. I remember getting up, having to go to the bathroom a lot. And when I would go to the bathroom a lot, I just felt like I'd been like I was a young high school or college kid. I mean, and just been drinking or something. I was just stumbling. I couldn't hold up very well at all. It was awful. And I was like, something is wrong. And that morning, we're like, yeah, we're just gonna go to the hospital. And so I went to the hospital, and basically when I got there, they took me in and ran some tests. Did a thing with another doctor, teleconference with another neurologist downtown, and that was the initial, um, basically the initial, what do you call it, diagnosis. They're like, yeah, this
Mhm.
is GBS, and that's when I learned about it, and I got admitted, and was in the hospital for about 2 weeks, two different hospitals.
Yeah, when a doctor calls another doctor, something going on.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah,
that's usually not a good sign. So from there, you said you were in the hospital like 2 weeks. Um,
yeah,
how quickly did this progress, and how bad did it get?
yeah. Well, it, at first it got pretty bad because it was 2 weeks in the hospital and then 2 weeks at an inpatient rehab facility and then outpatient. But it got kind of complicated because after that first week, like I had all movement in my face after that first week, and then I was gonna go to the rehab facility, but then kind of got complicated. And that's after that first week, they took me to the rehab facility and they noticed, hey, you lost movement in your face, and this is actually getting worse. We want you to go back to the hospital. So then I just went downtown this time, and it got really bad. It's like, I was 35 at the time, I think, and it's the worst feeling when you can't take a shower. I couldn't walk hardly. I'd be getting stuck on the toilet. They'd have to get me off the toilet. It was awful. And it just got real bad. And then I feel like it got a little bit better after that second week, and I went to rehab. But I was in rehab for 2 weeks, and it was tough getting out of rehab. I definitely wasn't out of the woods yet after those 2 weeks. I did a lot of physical therapy every day, just walking they would have handrails, and I would just practice trying to walk and getting up out of my chair and in my chair. And I was just so weak, but eventually, I had some outpatient therapy after I got out of rehab, and they put a port that went down into my heart, and it's kind of like a dialysis machine. It's called plasmapheresis, and I had that therapy. I think I had 7 different plasmapheresis sessions where it was outpatient. I would go in and they would hook up to this port. It's called a bass calf, and that I finally started to get a lot better after getting that as an outpatient, and that actually worked pretty quickly. I started to get within a month. I felt like, okay, I'm getting everything back, but it was a tough month, I would say, between the 2 weeks in the hospital and 2 weeks in inpatient, and then until I got that poured in and got plasmapheresis. That's what made the big difference for me.
What were the thoughts going through your head when it got to the point where your face was, almost paralyzed, and you're trying to talk to your family, and
Yeah.
I assume your kid? Like, do you have kids?
Yeah,
I was 2,
yeah,
1.
yeah. We got 2 kids, Abigail and Isaac, and it was just Abigail at that time, and I think she was almost 2 years old, and I don't know if she completely understood it, but just not being, when I lost movement in my face, it was so discouraging. It took a lot of my confidence away. I was scared, and it was dark, and a lot of anxiety, and just not, it was scary. And you can't talk when you can't move your face. Like I can whistle, and like I couldn't whistle anymore. Couldn't talk normally. I had to go through speech therapy, and that was just it was hard, and I had to take it one day at a time. That's in that time. A lot of times, one of the verses that I hold close to my heart, it's Isaiah 40:31. The NASB version reads, "Yet those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They'll mount up with wings like eagles. They'll run and not get tired. They'll walk and not become weary." And I guess the thing that really hits home with me in that verse is wait. And I had to do a lot of waiting, laying in the bed, not knowing what tomorrow holds or what a month holds or how this prognosis is going to play out, if I'm going to ever get to run and exercise normally again. And it was just, you just, sometimes even when you set goals in running, you have a big lofty goal, and you can think, how am I going to get there? And it just seems like there's no way I'll ever be able to achieve that. I just didn't know what the future held. So I love that verse because it's all about waiting and overcoming. Like eagles, when the storm comes, they rise above and they ride it out. So I just tried my best to be patient and, praying to God and seeking Him, and just saying, hey, man, God's going to be faithful. He's got me. And that verse has been awesome for me. I love that verse, and in my road to recovery, I've just kind of clung to that, and it's been great. God's been so faithful in this road to recovery. I mean, it's been 3 years now, and if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have been able to run 3 marathons, 300 milers, and won the Cherokee and all that. I'd have been like, wow, are you kidding me? So it's been an amazing journey for real.
Man, that's humbling to hear, like that the things you went through and the fact that you basically had to learn how to walk
Mm-hmm.
and talk and start all over again. You probably didn't know even at that time if you were going to be able to run. Like
Yeah.
that was probably just like, what, you know, how long is it going to take me to, did you ask the doctor like how long it was going to be before you could like do activities again?
Yeah, yeah, I remember the rehab place, the main doctor there. I remember there at the end before getting checked out. I was just trying to get answers like, man, what's the prognosis? You think I'll ever be able to run again? And I don't remember exactly his answer, but I, it wasn't a very clear answer. I didn't get a clear answer of, yeah, you're gonna. I don't think he knew 100%. It just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something that, hey, yeah. So it wasn't a certain outcome, and yeah, I had no idea, and just going forward, I just had to take it one day at a time and pray a lot. I remember the night before I was getting the procedure done to have that vas cath, tunneled vas cath with the port basically where they hooked me up to the machine that recycled my blood because with GBS it's called Guillain-Barré syndrome. What it is basically you get an infection and your body or immune system tries to fight it off, and basically it the infection or your immune system eventually it mimics your nervous system, so your immune system starts to attack your nervous system, and
Mm.
so they were recycling all my blood, and it's hard to explain, but essentially they were recycling it all, and I was replacing all I think the white blood cells maybe, and that's what really helped, and yeah, I remember going that night before though, before that procedure to get all that set up, just praying to God. It was a big full moon that night, and I was like, God, you're the creator of this earth. It's a beautiful moon out here tonight. And I was like, if you're the creator, you know all, and I'm just me. I was like, I know that you can do great things. I was like, please God, just if you can heal me, just please just let me be able to run again. I would love to run and try to bring you all the glory. And that was my prayer, and really truly meant that. And just ever since then, I started getting the therapy, the plasmapheresis, and it sure enough started working, and I started day by day be able to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and I couldn't believe it. I think it was probably November I got back going to work. Sometime either late October or November I got discharged. And actually, it's funny. I was looking through my medical notes the other day, and just thinking about everything and kind of going through it, just reminiscing. And when they discharged me, it said his long-term goal it said he wants to run a lot. He wants to run a lot. Said that multiple times, and I think that's so cool because yeah, it's been my goal and I've stuck to it. And I can tell you right now, it's definitely been a big motivator when I'm running in races, and I think about where I've come from. Um, yeah, so yeah.
Well, and we had no idea of your story
Nope.
until you crossed the finish line, and when you broke down, and you crossed the finish line, you hug your parents, and you're kind of already at that point getting teary eyed, and then you just go right into your story, and it was captivating for everybody.
Yeah.
Like you had EMT, the rescue squad, the police, sheriff's department. Everybody was out there listening to you and your story. And one of our close ECA family members, Heather Watson, she's went through a lot of rehab and work
Mm-hmm.
trying to get back to running because
Yep.
she had something that happened to her as well in an actual marathon, and that's the lady that was giving out the medal. She put the medal around you, and you probably saw her out there. She had her cane. She was walking out there to you, and I mean, you inspired her so much. She just looked over at us and said, I'm going to do this. He can do it, I can do it. And I mean, we put on the event not too long ago at the fort, and she did a lap, and she just signed up for the dirt circuit.
I was about to
6
say,
hour.
You see that
And
sign up today?
And, she's been working so hard, which is like what you've done. You work so hard to get back to that point. And the first race may not go perfect, but man, that is a celebration, because that was something that was physically taken from you. And I could never imagine what that feeling is like, and I hope I never have to experience that. I hope, none of us do.
Yeah.
But there are some that do. And the ultimate test is how you respond to that.
Yeah.
And you, Matt, you responded, you did everything in your power to get back to the point to where you could run. And that's exactly what Heather's doing. And it's so inspiring to hear this stuff and to see this stuff. And, I hate the fact that you both had to go through that trauma and that, that everything that leads up to it, because I can only imagine you laying there, not really being able to talk to your child and not being able to talk to your wife, and like how disheartening and how upset and how angry you had to be just laying there. And then to look at you today, the ultra runner, the family man, and you're obviously very close with your parents. We saw that.
Oh, we saw that, definitely.
And, like that was a huge change in your life, but ultimately how you respond to challenges and change is, what makes you who you are. And I don't know of anybody that could have responded any better. You and Heather have fought tooth and nail to get back to where you're both at. And it's so humbling to see that determination and that grit. And I'm just curious, like you said you were diagnosed with that was August of 2021. Was I following that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So you go through, all of the procedures, you start getting the medicine, your treatment, and then you go to rehab, or not rehab, but, I guess, rehabilitation. Like you're trying to go through, being able to walk and physical therapy and all of that. When did the idea pop into your head to like, I'm going to do a marathon?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say before I get into that sometimes people, I'm glad that encouraged Heather. I really, that was awesome. I remember actually sharing a few words with her after the race, and that's what it's all about. If I can have an impact on someone, that's awesome. And to anybody that's going through something and they're like, why did bad things happen? Well, I ask that question a lot, and I feel like this whole thing, if this didn't happen to me, I wouldn't have had that spark to get me motivated. And this is definitely a big internal motivator for me. And yeah, it was a bad thing, awful thing that happened, but it's changed my life in a way that I never imagined. So there's that. And as far as getting into my first marathon and how did I get to that, once I got going back to work, somebody at work mentioned they were going to do the marathon, and I had all the intentions to do it before the GBS episode, and then that came along, and I was like, all right, well, I do need to kind of get back into running now that I'm back better, and why not? And so it was April of 2022 that year. I had, I guess, about 3 months or more, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'm all in. So I remember signing up and doing that first marathon, and started training all over again. My first marathon, like I said, April 2022, Nashville Rock and Roll Marathon. I did it in 3:45, somewhere in there, and I've done 3 since. I think my progression goes 3:45, 3:01, and then this past year I did it in 2:59:22.
Ooh, congratulations. Under 3, baby.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I'm telling you, that was such an epic finish coming in. I was like, at the end of this last marathon I was running, I was like, I started to hit the wall, but I was like, let's keep going, let's keep going. And then that last mile, I was looking at my watch, I was like, I got it, let's just keep going. I was screaming the whole way in, and I was so happy. And you would ask me 3 years ago, I remember when I that first marathon, 3:45. That's hard. I don't how I'm gonna be able to do that. I didn't think I could do it, but you stay consistent with something, and especially running, it's just amazing what you can do. And so just seeing that progress too, that's like huge for me. I'm like, man, I love this, and got me wanting to run more and more now.
So when you're running a 2:59 marathon, does your beard just like wrap around your neck like a bandana?
Is it like,
Yeah,
yep. Does yours split down the middle too?
it splits down the middle, I think. Yeah, yeah.
It wraps right around. Yep. That's exactly
That
what
and
it does.
any gels or any food I'm eating or whatever, it's definitely getting nasty in the beard and all
Yep.
that good stuff. But it is what it is.
Well,
So
dude, that's pretty impressive. I mean, just to even be able to get a sub 3 marathon is pretty hard, and then this stuff that you went through to get there, it's impressive, man.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So now take us to this transition of like, I just ran a 2:59 marathon. Looks like your very first 100 miler was Tunnel Hill.
yep, Tunnel Hill.
So how in the world did we go from a marathon? Like, I don't see anything else. Maybe you did a transition race. I have no idea. But did you go straight to a 100 miler?
I did.
Well, tell us about this. I want to hear this story. And how did this even come about?
Yeah. Well, I was looking for some good running motivational movies and whatnot, and there was a guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but it was on Amazon, and he's a comedian, and he was going through a lot of grief with his mom dying, and he talks about, I think, being in a doctor's office in the movie, and he's seen this ultra running magazine, and it's like basically touting how the ultra marathons or the 100 milers are the new marathon. And he's like, I'm gonna do a marathon or a 100 miler, and I just was like, what? I didn't really know much about 100 milers either, but I thought it was so cool that he had done it, and I was like, yeah. And I started looking into the different 100 milers. I remember seeing No Business, and I saw Tunnel Hill, and it's more flat, and it says good, friendly to beginners, people that try to do it for the first time. And so I kind of just set my eyes on it, and one day I just went ahead and committed. I was like, all right. And then once I committed, I was like, well, I better start running, and started running a whole lot, and tried to get I'd try to hit a 100 mile week, and then the next week I'd go down, and then and my 100 mile weeks would consist of like I'd do a 20 mile long run one week, and then two or three every other week. So then like the third week I would do a 30 mile long run, and then every other week. Then the next one would be a 40 mile long week, and I don't know, I had an interesting approach. I don't know how I came up with it, but I got all the way up to a 50 mile run, and then I think I had two 40 mile runs, and just kind of slowed back down, and then did Tunnel Hill in November of that year, November of 2022, yeah. And my time on Tunnel Hill was at 22:56. I was hoping to go faster, but it was quite an experience starting out that race. It was snowing. I think we got to the race and there was snow on the ground. That wasn't expected. That was super cold, and a lot about just being prepared for the cold and pacing. It was a very good learning experience. My wife, if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have got through that. I remember getting to the aid station somewhere around maybe mile 80 or something like that, and I wanted to quit. And she's like, "You put all this work in," and she did not let me quit. I'm so
Oh, I
thankful
love
because
it. I love it.
yeah, yeah. If it wasn't for her, I definitely would have. But so she walked with me for a little bit. She's like, "I'll walk with you," and I just was arm around her, holding her close, walking with her. And I'm like, man, I remember thinking about all the people running by. Like, these people are some savages. And I remember finishing and making it through. They announced, "Hey, Matt Cook from Lebanon, Tennessee," and I got through. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And yeah, I was in a lot of pain afterwards. I'm never doing this again. And probably a couple of days later, I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to do another one." So
So a lot of people would die to have a sub 24 hour 100 miler, and you go out and do it in your very first one. So kudos. That's pretty impressive in itself. Even if it's I know Tunnel Hill's a very fast 100 miler, but running a sub 24 for your first time is still something hard to do, because it's hard to pace yourself over 100 miles if all you've ever ran's a marathon. So that's actually really good. Did you experience any stomach issues, any cramping, anything like that?
Uh, n- no, well, I got kind of nauseous, like at that 80 mile mark. I was sitting for a while, and then once I got back up and decided to trying to go back at it, I was like, whoa, I almost threw up, but I didn't throw up. And as far as cramping, I was just really sore more than anything. I don't know. I don't think I cramped. And, yeah, it, it was just super sore. I definitely didn't go hard on like trying to keep the nutrition going early on at all. That was dumb. I was skipping so many aid stations in that first half, and that was a big mistake.
Well, you live and you learn. We all make mistakes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we'll continue to make them. So no matter how many times you learn something, you're going to screw up at some point. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But is this when you realized, oh, I love ultras?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it was it, just being able to think back on it and think of the accomplishment. To me, that was a really big accomplishment. One, knowing where I came from with GBS, and two, knowing that I was able to do that, like what the body's capable of. That kind of was fascinating to me, and just the whole experience. Like when you do it, you feel like, man, it's mentally tough, not just physically tough, but mentally tough, and it's just kind of, I feel like shapes your character and makes you a better person. And so, yeah, I was kind of like, I want to do more. I really love running, and I mean, when you train and do that, you have to run a lot. And so it kind of grew on me, just the running and everything. And so, yeah, I saw other ultras out there, ultra sign up, looking around, and so there's definitely more that I wanted to go do. And I think one of the things with Tunnel Hill, like I saw it was a Western States qualifier, and I was like, hey, well, I can do this, and I'll do another one next year. Kind of like the marathons. I think my goal there is to eventually get into the Boston Marathon. I think for doing the hundreds, I'm like kind of telling myself if I can just do one of these every year that's like a Western States qualifier, I think after like 10 years, if you hadn't got in, your odds go up pretty good. And so I was like thinking if I can just keep doing at least one a year and hopefully one day get into the Western States, like my first marathon, it was, hey, this is a bucket list. Well, now my next goal is to try to get into Boston and get into Western States, and kind of going through the process of just doing everything. You start to change as far as your goals and everything, and it's definitely been a character changing thing. Just doing 100 milers and everything, it's definitely grown on me, and I love running.
Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
you've done some tough hundreds. I'm just looking at your list here, or tough races. Period. Strolling Gym. I mean, it's a 40-mile race, but dude, it's it's right in the middle of the hottest time of the year, and I mean, that was your second. That was your second race. So
Yeah.
November 2022, you run Tunnel Hill, and then in May, you sign up and go do the 40-miler Strolling Gym, and you run it in 5:48, which is impressive.
Yeah.
Uh, 11th place overall. I mean, that's really good. Like I've heard, I don't know, I've never ran the race, but people tell me all the time if you go sub 6 hour, that's a really good time for that race. Um, and I mean, you've done it twice, and you did it the second time in 5:24, so you shaved another 24 minutes off your time. So I mean, kudos to you. How was that experience?
Uh, it was cool just getting to learn about Laz. Everything in the running world is new to me. I had no idea about Laz or the race. Was it the race that Issa Chung, that documentary? Learning about all that and just diving into that is pretty cool. I remember the first time I did the race, he was there, and doing the race, going up a lot of hills. He's got like messages on the road, like this. Some say this is a hill. What do you think? And just different stuff like that. The banter, it's kind of funny. And I remember going into the first one, I was like, oh, just trying to be careful not to overdo it because I didn't know how hard it was going to be, and it was a good experience. And every time I always get coming close to the finish line after a long race, it's just like all the all the feelings and emotions you experience right when you're closing in on that finish line is so heavy, just like with the Cherokee. And I'm just like, I love it. I'm hooked on it. And Tunnel Hill's a good one. I like how or not Tunnel Hill, but Strolling Jim. I like how they have their different shirts. You got the yellow shirt for I think sub 5 hours, the blue shirt for sub 6, and then the red shirt for sub 7. I think that's right. I might have screwed it up, but I've got the blue shirt each year. I would love to get the yellow shirt. I feel like I don't know what's harder, a sub 3 marathon or getting that yellow shirt. That's tough, and that would be cool if I could get a yellow shirt. I'm gonna probably try to go again next year and go fast.
I love it. So, how was going back real quick to Tunnel Hill? I just got to ask you because I talked about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast. I don't remember when, but the feeling of crossing the finish line of 100-miler. There's no other feeling in the world of like self accomplishment and feeling like you've done something pretty amazing, because you have, compared to like a marathon or a 50-miler. Like there is just literally no feeling of crossing that finish line with a 100-miler. How was that experience for you coming from, I mean, shoot, what, a year ago, being paralyzed, basically from the face, from your mouth down, like, to crossing that 100-mile finish line? What emotion do you remember, like how you felt and the things you experienced?
Yeah, I felt like, honestly, I felt pretty humbled and broken because it was just so hard. Um, but kind of reminiscent over the days after, where I really felt like, man, it gave me a big confidence boost. But I mean, yeah, I was so pleased to get through it. I couldn't believe it. But if anything more, at that first 100, I was just like, I was ready to just start bawling. I remember hugging my wife, and yeah, I can't believe I made it through. But I was pretty broken, I would say, more than anything, just humbled because it was such a hard challenge, and it meant a lot to me. I worked hard for it for sure. Yeah.
And then we go to Strolling Jim, and then you go to like you finish No Business, which is it's another hard 100-miler. I mean that's not an easy one, and then you also finish Pinhoti. So No Business, you went 30 hours. Pinhoti, 23 hours. That's awesome. I mean, so of all of the races you've done so far, you've done 300-milers, 240-milers, and let's see, and the Cherokee. What's been your most memorable of all of those races? Like what's been, and maybe there's a couple of races, but like what's been like significant for you?
Yeah. I definitely think Tunnel Hill was just the most memorable just because it was the first one and getting through all that, and just the experience in itself. And then, coming back basically a year later doing Pinhoti, and it's, more of a trail course, not necessarily a rail trail and flat, and all the climbing and everything, and being able to do it within 5 minutes of Tunnel Hill. I was really proud of that because also I'd done No Business 2 weeks before it. So I was really proud of my Pinhoti finish just to see, how much I've improved since Tunnel Hill. So those were really special. I did, Pinhoti with a good friend of mine, Joey, and we run a lot together, and so we were able to finish that together. He paced me on that last half, and so coming in on that was real special. And then doing this Cherokee race, and winning that, I was super special. You know, to win an ultra and come in like that. I remember closing in, passing, Hank going down Wacheezy, he was going up. I was like, man, I think I can win this. And as I kept I remember getting into town, running on the road, just looking back, I was like, yeah. And just coming to that realization, that was super special. So those three, Tunnel Hill, Pinhoti, and definitely Cherokee, they all are pretty special. And I won't forget them. It's something that I feel like when I grow old and can't move again, similar to how I was in the hospital this time, I feel like I'm going to be like, yeah, I did that. I'm proud of this. This is, I lived it out, and that's what I want to do. I want to live to the fullest and not leave anything unturned as far as like my desires for running, my goals, and everything like that. You gotta live every day like it's your last, and so I'm gonna keep on running and just striving to do the best I can because you don't know until you try.
Yeah, and I mean, none of us are promised tomorrow.
No.
I mean, that's the honest truth. I mean, look at the fact of what all was taken from you, and you've had to fight to get back to where you're at. And I mean, that can happen to any of us.
Yeah.
So enjoy the moments you're in, take full advantage of them. I mean, you're living proof of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what?
I see.
I just gotta ask. I gotta ask. What happened at No Business?
Well, like as far as that whole thing, like I didn't expect to get into No Business. I was on the wait list, and so I was like, all right, I'll sign up for Pinhoti. It's relatively because I wanted something that was somewhat close and that's gonna work out for me. And that was the next one, and so I did that, and then I don't know when exactly it was, but closing in, getting closer to the time, they emailed me and I was like, you get a chance to get off the wait list and do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I was like, wow, this is 2 weeks from Pinhoti. So that was kind of crazy. And, I really wanted to finish them both. So that was more like, okay, this is a goal to do both of them. I want to finish them both, but at the same time, I really have to be careful. So with No Business, I definitely feel like I think I could have gone faster than that 30 hour mark. And, but I went in with a really conservative approach and, it was hard going 30 hours. I remember at the end, I don't know what mile marker it was, but I remember once sunlight came up and everything, and I got to an aid station, there was like campfire and some chairs and just sitting in a chair and my buddy getting me some coffee and muffins or something. And I was completely nodding off. It was like no problem to go to sleep, but 30 hours, whether you're doing 24 hours or 30 hours, they both have their challenges. It's just different. And, it was a challenge, but I was glad to get through it. I was super sore afterwards. And I think after No Business, me and my family, we all actually went to the beach. I think it was like somewhere in Virginia. We went to the beach, like Myrtle Beach. And that was a bad idea, riding in the car, going to the beach after doing 100 miles because my legs all swelled up on me. And, but yeah, No Business was good. It's got some real beautiful, scenery. I think the biggest thing there was, I feel like it was super hard going down before the water crossing at the end, or not at the end, but there's a water crossing and you're going down and there's like a ton of rocks and that was hard. And then also I remember the Twin Arches. It was real pretty there, the Twin Arches, and it was a good experience. So I'm doing it this year again in October. I've got the Bear coming up, Bear 100 in September, and then about a month later this time I have No Business. And my goal for No Business this year, I would love to get a sub 24. That way I can get a double buckle, a shiny buckle, plus the other. I'll have like a trifecta, right? But we'll see. I don't know.
Well, we'll be there. East Coast Adventures is running an aid station, so I think it's Duncan Hollow. Brian just told me
It's gonna be a busy weekend.
Yeah, so we'll be there. We'll be there to help you in any way possible, and then next year I've got to go back and run it and get my double buckle because I DNF'd in 2023. You talking about a humbling experience there? You go from 2022 a podium finish to 2023 mile 50. I just DNF'd, so I had to wait this year to go back next year to get my double buckle. So.
Yeah, you got what, third in 2021 with like 22 hours or something like that.
Yeah,
Good
and then
stuff.
last year was a disaster. So that's the thing. Ultra running is super humbling. I got humbled. I got some humble pie just a few weeks ago at Bob's. It happens. I
Yep.
mean, no matter how good a race goes, you're going to have a bad race at some point. It may not be the
Definitely.
next race, but not anything can happen on race day. So I've learned that. Take them as it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I follow Rob
Yeah.
Apple's lead. The Rob Apple. You ask him, he's got the world record for the most ultras. I think he's at 808.
He finished
now.
it last weekend.
But man, Matt, anytime you ask this guy, Rob, so how many will this be? Very first thing he says, if I finish 808, 807. But it always starts with if I finish.
Yep.
And that thought never went through my head until my first DNF. And then I'm like, he is absolutely right. You cannot take anything for granted because anything can happen. And it's just a humbling experience because, 100 miles is a long way for a lot of stuff to go wrong. And you feel like you lived 10 lives in that 100 miles, it's an experience that you won't ever forget.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I think when things don't go your way too, that's a whole nother thing about enduring. Like it's not just a physical thing, it's being able to endure through DNF or whatever happens and making the best of it. So
Absolutely. That is the thing. It's always about bad things are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. But what ultimately matters at the end of the day is not the fact that you DNF, not the fact that you got hurt, not the fact that something happened bad in your life. How are you going to respond? That's the only thing that matters at that point is how are you going to respond? Because it's your decision. And we see how Matt responds. You fight back. You've already proven that. You're a fighter. You're gritty. You're going to fight back. You're going to do whatever you can to get back to that point. And that's something that we all need to be able to feel on occasion is like you've got to have failure. If you don't have failure, there's no growth to come with it. And you have to be able to accept that. You've got to be willing to fail. Sometimes the hardest thing to do, the extremely hardest thing to do is show up. Just show up. Show up at that start line and put it all out there. No matter how scared you are, the hardest thing is to show up. It doesn't matter if you DNF. It doesn't matter if you win the race. Show up. And you're going to prove something to yourself. Be there. If you don't show up, that's just regret. That's what that's going to lead to is like, what would have happened if I did do it? And to live your life worried about failing and not doing those things, that's a life that I don't ever want to experience.
yeah, it definitely takes courage. If things can get overwhelming, everything you just said, it makes me think of a Rocky quote where he's talking to the younger guy, and he's like, it's not about how hard you can hit in life, it's about how hard you can get hit and get back up and keep going, something like that. And I tell you what, I love it. I love it. It's like, man, you just got to keep pushing and have that mindset, that mentality. And that's what I love about running, it's always a time to reflect and it's just so good and can't get enough of it.
Right, man. And I love that quote too. You're exactly right. And I love another quote. I say it all the time. Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is an ultra in itself. That's a 100-mile race. You can have every plan in the world. But when you get to the point that your stomach says no, or your body says no, what's your plan then? How do you respond? And that's the things that you have to kind of work through and figure out. And until you've experienced it, you have no idea how terrible that can feel sometimes. And we all go through it. You can look around at everybody at a 100-mile race, and some people may be smiling, but they weren't smiling 5 miles ago or 10 miles ago. Everybody had, I mean, it is just a roller coaster of emotion. And we all go through it. So I got to ask you now, how did you find the Cherokee and what got you to sign up? Like, how did this all come about? Because the Cherokee was something that we were trying to get way ahead of with permits and everything. It just didn't work. So we're working on the permits already now for next year, but we only had like 3 months to promote this thing to even get it going. How did it all come about for you, and what pushed you over the edge to do it? And we're so grateful that you did.
Yeah. Well, it was word of mouth. I guess word of mouth is sometimes the best marketing, right? I don't know. There's a buddy of mine. His name's Corey. He actually lives in Knoxville now, but he lived in Lebanon. And he sent me and Joey a text, and he's like, "Hey, you guys should come do this." And I was like, the initial response was, well, let me think about it. And I was like, I don't know. And I don't know what it was. Something came up, but I knew I needed to get some hill training in. And I remember reading about it was a 70K and a 130K, and I was like, man, that's a lot of climb. The climbing stuff you guys had in the description on Ultrasano, and just thinking about Bear coming up, and I think I don't remember. I'd done a long run or something, and I was like getting kind of excited. And I was like, you know what? I should sign up for this. And so then I just signed up for it and started to learn more about East Coast adventures. And I just came across the podcast, and I was like, wow. Started listening to y'all's podcast while I was at work, because I do some while I'm at work. I can listen to it and have a headphone in, and so sometimes I'm doing some thoughtless work, I guess you could say. And it's nice to pass time and listen to that. And I've really enjoyed some of your episodes. And as I got closer to the Cherokee and everything, I was like, I'm getting excited to meet these guys. And yeah, that's kind of how I came upon it. It was just word of mouth.
And now we got you on the podcast, and you won the Cherokee. So you need to like take your friend out to dinner. That's awesome.
It's Corey. He ran the fort this weekend.
Yeah, was it Corey?
It's Corey.
It was.
Yeah, Corey Clark. Him and Teresa came out. And they
I didn't
crushed.
put together that it was Corey Clark.
Yeah, they did good this weekend.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
He tried to talk me into the fort.
Corey is a fun guy to be around. We were doing training runs and everything up there for the Cherokee. He'd come down from Knoxville, and he was just fun. Let me tell you this story about Corey. So he texted me the night before our training run, and he says, "Hey Matt, I really want to do the 130. I think I'm ready. I think my training's been good." I said, "Okay, that's great." I said, "We're gonna do this training run tomorrow," and I did half of it with him. I didn't do the whole thing, and so we did the major climb of Wacheese right there where the aid station was. We parked there, or I parked there. They did the whole thing. And I climbed to the top with him up to the service road. And he gets up there. And he gets up to that section. He just looks at me. And he's shaking his head. Like, I don't know. That was hard. And I said, well, you're not done yet. You got to climb to the tower. I said, there's 2 towers up there. You go to the second one. I had to get back home. And he texted me that night. And he says, do not, I repeat, do not switch me to that 130K. 70K is good enough.
Was that in the Cherokee Run group? I think I remember reading that.
I know he texted me personally that night when he got home. He said, "Do not switch me," because he asked me about it. I said, "You should be able to go to there. Should be able to go in there and ultra sign up and do it. If not, David knows how. Just reach out to him." And that night he said, "Do not switch me." So he was happily content. And then the next weekend we went out, or the next maybe 2 weeks after that, we went out and did the 20-miler. On the John Muir side, and he had fun. I mean, him and Teresa were great out there training. So Corey's fun. Corey's cool to be around.
Well, I mean, they had a great group at Fort Frenzy too.
Yeah, him and Teresa.
They showed up with that nice Fleet Feet.
Oh yeah,
canopy.
I said, dude, how you getting a Fleet Feet thing? He's like, well, I did this and this. I know the guys, and we do this. I'm like, yeah, you look like professional runners down here with Fleet Feet canopies.
Well, Corey, thank you for talking Matt into signing up. Then we got to meet him. So
definitely,
we got to meet some pretty amazing people in the Cherokee. So it's pretty awesome.
A lot of people that we hadn't saw before. Like we had a lot of our normal runners that came out, but then we had a whole group of people that we have never had at events, such as yourself and Corey. You know, Corey's never ran one of our events until then, and then the fort. But it was cool.
How was your experience for the race? How did you enjoy the Cherokee compared to some of your other races? Was it? I mean, that was our first year, so I will just honest feedback. Did you things that could have been better? Things that you enjoyed?
Yeah, no, I think it was awesome. The aid stations were, I mean, pretty frequent. I think it was like every 5 miles, it seemed like there was an aid station. I think the longest might have been a little over 5 miles, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me. And I mean, the aid stations were great. The people at the aid stations were great. Um, the getting set up and riding the bus over to Radiance, I think it was, or Reliance,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
it was a good, challenging race. I mean, I think the finish rate for the 130K, like you were just saying, of course, didn't have to sign me up, but yeah, that's a testament how hard it is. I think that's a good thing. I mean, was it 5 people out of 20 and only five
Yeah.
finished?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a good,
We're
it was a good
70%
course.
DNF rate.
The 70K had a good finish rate.
We still had several not finish on the 70K. And what was funny is some of the 70K runners were like, there wasn't as much elevation as I thought. And I'm like, well, you dropped before you got to the elevation. I mean, if you didn't get past Buck Bald, you didn't get some of those big climbs, like
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, where did you start to finally feel? I'm sure at some point you felt your legs like getting heavy from the elevation. Did it hit you at Wacheezy or before or after?
I would say definitely at Watch Easy. I was like, whoa. Like I definitely I took some salt pills at the aid station going. I think it was after Watch Easy because I started to feel it in my quads coming down Watch Easy, and I was a little nervous because I was wanting to keep that lead, and I think they offered it to me before going up, and then I got back and said, yeah, I'll take some of those salt pills, and that definitely kept me from cramping up too bad. I guess it worked. So, but yeah.
So a lot of people say that there's two climbs in the 70K that's the worst. The first one being right after Unicoi. So that's you come down Buckbald, you go to the next aid station, and then you'll do like a 3 mile climb, and it's 1,000-something foot, and then Wacheezy. Because Wacheezy is what we advertise. Wacheezy ain't easy. Wacheezy's hard. Wacheezy's a less than a 3 mile climb of 15 to 2,000 foot of elevation gain. But there's a section right after Unicoi that if you're not prepared for it, it'll wreck you. Because it's 1,000 plus, and it's a shorter distance of climb. It may be 2 miles or 3 miles. I'm not exactly sure, but we heard that numerous times. So which one, out of your opinion, was snuck up on you, or did it get you?
I still feel like Wacheezy, but the one after Unicoi that you're talking about, what is that, around 20-ish miles?
Yeah, somewhere around that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have a vague memory of it, but I definitely remember Wacheezy getting that gyro there.
Yeah, we got some feedback that we need to put a hydration station at the top of Wacheezy next time. So we're going to do that. The 130K people were dying, I guess, in the heat of the day.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand why you didn't put one up there because it's such a hike up. I mean, just having to carry like all the water. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could take an ATV thing up there or whatever.
I mean,
Wow.
I took my Land Cruiser up there.
I drove my truck up there to drop off the sign and the bracelets. And
there's some serious ruts in that road going
on.
up.
Yes, there is, dude.
To run up it than it is to drive up it. Way faster to run up it than drive up it. It is probably an hour up there and an hour back.
For Matt, when you have a 24-year-old Land Cruiser, you can hit all the shit you want going up that hill.
I can't imagine getting stuck.
Oh my gosh! Is it the road? The road is awful, ain't it? The road is literally you're climbing over these like boulder looking ruts, and trying to maneuver it. It wasn't fun, but I was very proud of my truck for making it up there because that was the first time I've ever took it up there, and it surprised me. No 4-wheel drive the whole time.
So
Oh, wow.
when you finish Wacheezy, you come through, and then you finally get all the way to the gravel section. You're towards the end. You're running towards the very last aid station. How did all that downhill feel? Were you flying, or were you like, oh, this hurts so bad?
Yeah. Running down Wacheezy, I was like, don't, yeah, I was slowing down, but once I got out of there and everything, getting on more of the flat stuff, and I think there was like one last water crossing. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that at
Well,
the very end. I really enjoyed that. That felt so good because my feet were feeling, I had some good blisters, and it just felt good going through that water. But I don't, I mean, going through the gravel section and then getting into town and all that, I was trying to give it everything I had, but I was definitely pretty beat up.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Well, you come in flying.
He did.
And I can't remember what you beat second place by, but it was
almost an hour.
It was pretty considerable. I mean, because by the time Hank finished, you finished in the sunshine. It poured down rain for
He got
20 or 30 minutes, and he ran right through that and finished in second. And but I mean, when you come in, you look great, and I love the fact that, like, you come across the finish line, Nick's getting pictures, and me and Matt and everybody's there, and what I love the most is you go straight to your parents and you hug them, and then you just look up at me and Matt and you say, you always ask everybody on your podcast why they run, and you go right into it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I don't know if you saw the engagement, but you had 40 people standing out there at that finish line, because some of these guys, like from the EMT and the rescue squad, they didn't know what an ultra was. They were so intrigued that y'all ran from Alliance all the way to Tellico Plains High School. They all just stopped everything they were doing to come out to see the very first finisher.
Yeah.
So you had like your own standing ovation out there, and everybody just listened to your story, and we were all just, simply just like intrigued.
So from the EMT and the EMS and all of them, from their standpoint, they grew up in those mountains. So they know how difficult it is to even maneuver around in there. And a lot of them, they bear hunt and they, do a lot of hunting up there. So they know the climbs. When you tell them a spot, they're like, oh yeah, we did that. That's awful. How do you, that's going to suck. And then, when we went to them and presented them the race that we're going to do, you guys are going to make them run from Reliance to Tellico? Like, yeah, that's what we do. That's kind of what that's what we're all about.
Make them. We're going to make them.
And then, the more we talked to them about it, they were just in awe of like, I can't believe somebody's going to finish that. And then when we hollered, we're pulling the air horn like, hey, he's coming. In their minds, they're like, this dude did this fast. Like 8 hours and 32 minutes. That is something, because they know exactly every spot you went on. They know that area. They've done rescues up there. They've been on the trail, and they'll tell you, we ain't running that. We'll take the ATV up there, but we ain't climbing that. We ain't walking that ATV. So when you came across like you did, they were in awe. Like David said, they were like, this dude did this fast. And then when you explain your story after that, that kind of put in a whole different factor of like, wow, this dude did it this fast. He overcame this, and he's the winner. So, for our community that hasn't saw that was inspiration to all of them, because I work with a few of the EMTs and rescue squad people, and they came and talked to me like the next week, like, that was a incredible race, incredible people, and all this. So you telling your story didn't just inspire the runners or inspire other. It inspired just the EMT people, the rescue squad people, and it was awesome to see.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I'm just so grateful. I am, and I was just really grateful just to be coming in and winning that, I just remember the whole time coming through, I was like, man, God, if you can get me through this race, let me finish it. Like, wow, this is awesome. To God be the glory. And I wanted to make that clear because I feel like God is so faithful in this whole journey and process to this point, and I'm loving every minute of it, and it's amazing. And you can do anything you put your mind to, and yeah, the sky's the limit. Just keep working at it.
Well, we're grateful that you found us.
Yeah.
That Corey pushed you over the edge, and we love the fact that you started listening to the podcast. I mean, and now you're part of ECA family. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you. And I love hearing the journey that you've went through and where you're at, and none of that comes without hard work. And you've put the work in to get to this point, and can't wait to see what you do. I mean, your next 100-miler is no business, and then you're doing the Bear, and I got a feeling that that's not going to be a 30-hour no business run. So it'll be fun to watch you come through and actually be there. When you come through, I'm going to be like, oh, come here, Matt, selfie. And if you need anything, please let me know. We'll be there to help you and take care of you and help you finish in any way possible. But man, it's just an inspiring story, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future. So thank you. We're going to start questions real quick. It might take Matt a few minutes because he's got to pull all the questions up from the previous time.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Have you got those?
I'm going to have to find them.
But while he's doing that, I want to go ahead and ask you the same question we ask everybody, which you're very well prepared for because you've already said this at the race. But why do you run?
Yeah. Definitely just everything, my experience I went through, and overcoming that. Like, it's a personal challenge to me, seeing, hey, I don't want to leave anything, no stone unturned, and I want to live every day to the fullest. And just the process of running and seeing where I've come from and what I'm capable of doing, it's like, yeah, I want to keep doing that. And not only that, but through this process of running and seeing what I've been able to do, I want to be able to inspire other people. I feel like if I can help to encourage somebody and them see my journey, then that's great. And it really ultimately I feel like it makes me a better person. When I'm not running, and I just don't think I'm the same as a person when I go out and run. It really rejuvenates me and gives me that time to reflect, and I feel like I can be a better person. And I want to be an example for my kids. Them seeing me running and doing hard things, and I want them to strive to do hard things and see what they're capable of. So, yeah, I encourage everybody to get out and run.
I mean, I truly believe that. I think for your kids, it's good for them to see that things aren't easy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Dad didn't quit. He kept trying. And they're going to remember that stuff. They're going to remember that, you were in pain, or they may even see you cry, but they're going to see you keep going. And that means a lot, because not everything in life is always sunshine and rainbows. I mean, it's going to get hard. And it goes all the way back to the beginning of this podcast, what you just said, how you choose to respond. Your kids are watching you.
Yeah.
And that is extremely important. If you decide to give up on anything, remember your kids are watching you. And that's so important in their growth and development, to see their parents have some struggle and be able to push through and fight through and find a way to make that work. Because that's not always something that you see with your parents. And I think when they do see that, it's important, because they realize real quick that, hey, there's hard things and we can do it. And they're going to really remember that when that time comes. And I love that.
Yeah, love it. It's great.
All right, Mr. Williams. Do we need to pause this podcast?
I got it. I got a few questions here.
I will gladly pause. We can just end it if you need me to, and we can restart it.
No, I got them. This is from a fellow competitor that it says, How the heck did you do that? I guess he's impressed by your finish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just grateful to have won it. I'm anxious to see how my time holds up next year and the years to come, and I'm glad I was able to win and just grateful. I did put in a lot of training, and I live on a really big hill. I know I think about 4 weeks out, I had a nice little training run where I just ran laps around my perimeter of where I live, and I think I did like just under 25 miles, and I did it at the last man. I did it with the last man standing format where I do what was that, 4.1 miles or whatever every hour. And I think with under 25 miles, it came out to be like 7,000 feet of gain. So that was a good confidence booster for climbing coming into this. And I guess it worked out. So I was super thrilled. And yeah, here we are.
There you are. All right. Do you have a strength plan?
It's a guy I follow, Jason Fitzgerald, I believe is his name, and he's got a program
Mhm.
called Strength Running. Uh, and it's a 16-week program. I've ran through it, I think, 2 or 3 times, um, leading into a few different races, of course. And I didn't do it leading into this race, but there's a few exercises and stuff I try to do at least every week, when I can. And then I also, I do a strength training class. I lead a group class on Fridays. Gym around me is called Total Fitness Kickboxing in Murfreesboro, and we do a strength and mobility class. So every Friday I'm in the gym. I do it about a 45-minute session, and I incorporate a lot of stuff that I got from the strength running program as well. And I feel like that really just combination of everything all helps me to avoid injuries and whatnot. It's very important for sure.
Yeah, strength training is
Yeah.
extremely important for ultra running. I don't know how people survive without it.
I don't either. What has been the hardest ultra that you've done?
I don't know. They're all hard for sure, but I guess I want to say the first one, just Tunnel Hill. I mean, it might not seem like the hardest. People were like that, but it was hard just overcoming the unknown and being the first one, the mental barrier, and getting through it. Never thought I would, but it gave me a great experience going into everything else and knowing that I have the ability to overcome. And so I'd say that was my hardest, is being the first.
I think everybody's 100-miler, first 100-miler is the hardest. Like it's just it's like a circus out there sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
Like you're just trying to figure it out. And some of the things you've experienced, you don't know how to fix them. You're just trying to survive.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What is your favorite distance?
He's not ran it yet. It's going to be 300 miles.
No. Yeah, the monster 300, I think, out in Arizona. Wow, that's wild. But
Hey, we got one of our
know.
team members
Just
signed up
Ball
for
State,
that.
baby. Just do Ball State. You've already done Strolling Gym. It's part of the same course.
Yeah, you run right through
Yeah,
it. So wonderful.
it sounds exciting. Maybe one day I'll do the Ball State. One day, but I don't know. Favorite distance is hard to say. I do like to spin that 40-mile range. I mean, the Cherokee and Strolling Gym, I really like those because you're not so beat up like a 100-miler, and you can get home and it's all in a day's work with the 40-ish miles, 50K,
Yeah.
40-ish miles. I would lean, I wouldn't say 50K or 40 miles, but in that range between 50 miles to 50K. I enjoy that just because you can get knocked out and get home and sleep in your own bed that night if it's close by.
So I'm going to tell you what I'm working on just for next year. And I've already talked to the guys about this, and this was inspired by Ryan Fortenberry. And going forward, and it'll be this year because Ryan Fortenberry is the only person that's actually in the running for this. So,
Yep.
The Fortenberry Challenge, if Ryan's listening, if you can complete Fort Frenzy and get 100 miles, Cherokee, 130K, and Dirt Circuit, get 100 miles, we're working on this huge stand. It's stand that's going to hold all 3 buckles that you'll get if you can do all 3 in a year. So just FYI, if that ever hits your radar, it's kind of a hard task to do. We didn't actually think anybody could truly do it because only a few people have ever even gotten 100 miles at the fort. We're at 3 now. Yep. We've had just as many ambulances trips as we've had 100-mile finishes. We're tied now. It's 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cherokee's July 20th. The fort's the second weekend of August.
Yep.
So to turn around and try to run 100 miles again, we didn't think it was even possible. But Ryan Fortenberry has done both, and he's already told me today that he is doing the dirt circuit. So I am working with a group right now to try to get a custom-made belt buckle holder that's actually going to be each little area is going to be inspired by each race. So this is going to be like one big tree that will hold buckles, and every section will be inspired by each race.
Perfect.
So for anybody that wants to try the Fortenberry Challenge next year, you will get that as a courtesy from East Coast Adventures for finishing this. But that's going to be a hard task that only a few people is ever going to accomplish.
The fort is difficult.
Yeah. I think
getting 100 miles at the fort is probably as hard as that 130.
I agree. I agree with that.
Because it's in the middle of August. It's 400 feet, over 400 feet elevation gain every loop.
Mm-hmm.
3.3 something miles, I think.
3.6 miles per loop.
3.65. This year is 3.7 because of the 300-year-old oak tree that fell.
But
sounds like a beautiful course.
I feel like Matt the Beard Cook could be in the running for this next year.
It's definitely a challenge. I was curious to see if they were going to get to 109 or not this year. And
well, think about this.
Jen Russo killed it though. She had a great race. She ran. I was looking at her splits. It's just amazing. She was so consistent. So consistent.
Yeah.
Well, think about this right here. Ryan did the fort, and his Strava shows 14,700 feet of elevation in the 100 mile.
Huh?
I mean, that's not too far off from the Cherokee.
Well, it is. I mean, Cherokee's 130K. He did 19,000 feet.
Yeah. Just a few more.
So, I mean, you did 10 or 11,000 feet in the 70K. I'm sure you felt that. I mean, it probably ran like 100 miles. But it's going to be hard for some people to do. I don't know. Getting all 3 of those in a year is going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge.
It will be. Yeah, like you said, I didn't think anybody.
What's the most amount of miles somebody's done in the dirt circuit? 24 hours.
120 plus.
124.
So the dirt circuit, if you can survive Fort Frenzy and Cherokee, the dirt circuit's easy.
Yeah.
It's a PR course. It's 200 feet elevation gain every loop, 3-mile loop.
Yeah.
I mean, I ran the race before we took it over because, Ryan at Dirty Birds, I signed up and ran their race. And the following year we took that race over. But, I mean, it was my PR for 12 hours. I ran 70 miles there, almost 70 miles there in 12 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a super fast course. So if you can survive, if you can do Cherokee in the fort, you'll get a month off to prepare for the dirt circuit. But that's the thing is it's July, August, and September. And I never even thought that anybody would ever even come close to doing this. But, Ryan Fortenberry, that's the toughest person I've ever met in my life. I've never seen anybody puke so much in my life and still finish a race. I never would have thought that he was going to finish the Cherokee. At one point, they were talking about giving him IVs. He was so dehydrated, and he did not take them. He just pushed through and finished that race. And it's crazy. So
he
I can't wait.
100 miles last year.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope next year we see number 2, Matt. I think you could definitely be one of the people that could do that.
Well, I'll keep it in. I'll kick it around in the back of my head, I guess, and we'll see what
Yeah,
happens. No
we'll see.
promises, but
Well, no pressure either.
All right, I got a few of our normal questions here. What is your favorite hydration?
I don't really. I can't say I have a favorite. I mean, I can't remember. You guys had Hoist. I didn't
Hmm.
mind that. And I think I've had Hoist and Sword and I think Roctane. Those are the only
Hmm.
three I've ever really tried in ultras. And honestly, I feel like I don't have a preference. I do water in one flask and the hydration of choice with the race that they have in the other, and that seems to work pretty good.
Oh,
Well, that's a good strategy though, because you don't know in a race what you're going to get.
yeah.
Some people use Tailwind, some people use Sword, some people use Roctane, some people use Hoist. Hoist sponsors us. That's who we use, and it's great. It's 80 calories in a serving, roughly, with good electrolytes. But like when I'm racing, I use Hoist in like my training stuff. But when I'm racing, I use Goo Roctane because it's 250 calories, and that's where I kind of go back and forth. If I'm doing a short race, I go with Hoist. I'm doing a really long race, I go with something that has more calories because I know me, 60 miles in, my stomach's going to turn into something that, who knows? And I could always drink stuff. I can always eat stuff. Sometimes chewing becomes extremely difficult in a
Yes, it
100-mile
does.
race. But I can drink 250 calories.
Yeah, I like ginger ale every once in a while in a race too. It's just right.
Absolutely. I have survived a few races on Coke or ginger ale only.
I survived the whole Georgia Jewel on Coke. Every aid station, it was a can of Coke.
You guys did that one together, didn't you?
Yeah, last year, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I've done it 2 years. I've done it 2 years in a row. I'm not doing it this year, but I would like to go back in a few years and actually try to break the course record. I would like to try to do that. I think that'd be fun. I got to figure out how to actually make it through that rock garden without killing myself. I have yet to do that. Matt picked me up like 5 times the last time I ran it.
Yeah, I was pacing him, and where he just falling, I'd pick him up. He'd fall, I'd pick him up. He'd just lay there. He'd lay there, stiff arms up, pick me up. I'd pick him up. We just keep on running.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
first year I ran it.
Yeah,
Last year did not go as well. But
and then we were going down this hill, and we were flying. We caught a couple people, and we were probably pushing a 7-minute pace, and he just eats it, just eats it, just a flying, and he just rolls, arms straight up. I pick him up, and we just keep on trucking. It was, I
Yeah.
think it's 5 times in that little 18 miles that I paced him.
now I will say though, Matt, the only reason that I was running in sevens, here's my strategy. Matt started pacing me at mile 80, and he said, "What can I bring you?" I said, "I want a full monster. Don't bring me in this sugar-free shit. I don't want any of that. I want as many carbs as you can bring me." So he walks up. He has like 3 energy drinks and like 4 candy bars.
Yep.
And it's like I feel like I'm like on a game show. I'm like, I'll take the Monster and the Snickers. And for the next hour, I crushed that course.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people we passed.
We
but
passed
I was
quite a
I was
few.
rolling. I was like 7. I mean, that's the thing. Like if your stomach can take the sugars and the carbs, you can get back into it. And I think I ended up like 5th overall, maybe. But it was a good race. But the rock garden just destroys me, though. I can't ever get through that thing.
Yeah. My
Did you
watch
have any
needs to count
Did you have any problems on like the Cherokee with falling?
I think I fell 5 times. Yeah.
Yep.
I was saying my watch. I think my watch needs a counter for how many times I fall in races. I don't ever remember, but it would be nice to have that. I know when I did the Pinhoti last November, I had my headlamp in, and I fell there at the end, and I landed on my headlamp. My head hit the ground, and hit the headlamp, and So at the finish line of my picture, if you ever look at it on Strava, they've got like a nice blood coming from my forehead, and it's just from where
Oh
my
wow.
headlamp just smacked the ground.
Ooh,
So,
ooh.
it's
Hmm.
always good to falls to get you more alert, I guess.
Yeah, we've had our share of injuries the last two races. We had, obviously the broken leg, the ankle that in the Cherokee, the 70K.
Yeah.
She broke her ankle and literally broke every bone from her ankle. And then in the Fort Frenzy, we had someone fall. I won't
Mhm.
throw out any names on the podcast at all, but we had someone fall and their tooth come through their lip,
Yeah.
right underneath it. So they
Oh
went
my
and got that
goodness.
glued, but she was awesome.
Oh,
I mean,
she's
she come
fun.
through the finish line. She's like, her shirt's covered in blood. She's like, I fell. How bad is it? And I'm like, me and Matt walk over there and sit down, and we sit down, and then I get to looking, and she's like, how bad is it? She looks up, and when she looks up, I see a line
Yep.
of blood right here, and I'm like, you need to go to the hospital. She's like, really? Did it go through? I'm like, oh yeah, it went through.
Yeah.
We should probably stop right here.
We gave her
But she
some
was so
wipes.
tough. You know what she did? She sprayed hand sanitizer
Ooh.
in that to clean it out.
Oh, that sounds painful.
That about made me cry. Like, I just hearing that made me want to hurt. Like, I don't know.
She went to the hospital. She went out there, got it all glued up. And
And
she
came
came
back.
back and hung out and talked. She's like, I got Scooter's coffee.
Yeah, her other runners kept running. They were in the 12-hour race.
Oh.
They stopped. One of them stopped, took her to the race, come back, and started running again. I was like,
it's pretty funny.
I love this.
She was fun.
Yeah.
She,
Yeah.
Ultra runners are just different. Like you learn at some point. Like, that's the thing that I love the most is I feel like you learn that not everything is just like an emergency. Like, it's not a panic attack. It's not something to freak out over. Like, you can work your way through anything. And I think those experiences kind of teach you that.
Yeah.
And like, you could tell with her, she was like, I mean, dude, she went over and setting her easy up and was like cleaning this thing out, waiting on her, her crew to finish their lap.
Yep.
She was good.
Yeah.
She's fine.
Gave her some gauze, Neosporin, an alcohol wipe, and she's good.
Yeah, she's like, just finish me. I'm gonna hang out. I'm like, gotcha. Like, no problem.
Came back with coffee and talking about how great the downtown of Sweetwater was. So
Yeah.
she had a little field trip.
Field trip.
All right. Let's see. My last question is what kind of shoes do you wear?
Well, for the Cherokee, I wore the what was it? I'm losing my train of thought. Oh yeah, Topo Mountain Racers, and I seem to like the Topos. I've got some of the other Topo road running shoes. I have the Atmos, the Cyclone, and yeah, but Cherokee, I did do the Mountain Racers, and I've used those at Pinhoti as well, and I seem to like them a lot. It's not a zero drop. I do wear Ultras every once in a while. I like those as well, but the Topos seem to be pretty good, so I'm sticking with them for now.
There's several people I know that like Topos.
Well, Brian also wore Topos, and he won the 130K. So
Yeah.
There's you some
I
marketing.
think you said he had
I've
some
never tried
Top two.
Topos.
Top 2 runners in each one.
Yep, never tried either one of them.
Well, I used to run in Ultras, and then they just blow apart after about 100 miles, and I quit running in them.
Yeah, I've heard some stuff like that before as well. Yeah.
I'm the clumsiest person out on the course, so if you want to test shoes, just give them to me. I will figure out everything that's wrong with them because I'm going to fall all over that course.
Yeah. You got Pinhoti coming up and lots of rocks there, so you get to test that out.
Well, let's hope I find a pair of trail shoes by then because that was the rookie mistake I just made in this last man standing. Me and Mary, the day before the race, I'm on the phone with her and I look, I'm looking around and I'm packing my stuff and I'm like, oh no. She's like, what? And I'm like, I don't have any trail shoes. She's like, what? I'm like, I don't have any trail shoes. I was like, all we've been training for is Yeti. And like, she writes all my coaching plan or all my running plans for coaching. And like, I told her, I was like, I don't want the backyard to be treated as a race. I want us to train for Yeti. My focus is Yeti. I want to, I want to try to go under 15 hours in Yeti. So like, don't change anything. So all I bought is road shoes. I forget this. I'm getting ready to run this race, and I literally stop on the way to the race, Matt. I stop at REI in Cincinnati and buy a pair of shoes. And I get there and ran 2 laps in them. I'm like, well, these are not what I thought. And I ended up finishing the race in my road shoes. I changed shoes like 3 times because the road shoes were so slick. I couldn't deal with the mud, and it was just a failure. Like it was a good dose of humble pie. I needed that before Yeti. That way I'll remember that. There's always something to learn. Remember that in everything. There's always something to learn. But no matter how many races you run, you can be overconfident and forget the simplest thing, just like shoes. And to show up with brand new trail running shoes for a last man standing, the dumbest thing I could have ever done. But I did it, and I'm like, yeah, well, here we are. I got blisters on my feet and everything, and like I don't normally get those. I'm like, whatever. So, well, Matt, do you have any other questions?
That's all I got.
Matt, do you have any questions for us?
Sure. Couple questions. I know you're doing the no business coming up, and also, and I think you said the Yeti 100. Matt, do you have any hundreds in mind coming up?
Oh, hundreds? No, I have no
Yeah.
hundreds in mind. Those will not be on the radar till next year, and I may try to join David at no business next year, possibly.
Well, you're gonna come join me at Yeti.
Yeah, I'm coming to crew David at Yeti this year, but I'm not running that. And then I got Firewater, just the normal 50K coming up. Other than that, nothing really spectacular this year.
Yeah, and I'm not running no business this year. We're volunteering. I'll run it next year because this is the year that the way that I've already finished. So I've got Yeti, and then I've got Pinhoti, and that's basically the rest of my year. And really, Pinhoti was just more of like I want to do at least one trail race this year. So as soon as we finish Yeti, I'm going straight to Pinhoti training, and we'll see how that transfers. Because honestly, the Yeti training has been mostly road because it's a fast course, and that's all I've been training for. And I was really humbled at Bob's with all the mud. I was not ready for that, nor the shoes, and it didn't go well. But again, that wasn't. You got to have a realistic expectation. If your goal is that's your A race and your B race is something completely opposite, you should still focus on your A race. And like, that's what I was doing. So I didn't know how it was going to go. I was really optimistic, but after about mile 50, I realized that it was going to be a long day. So it happens.
Yeah.
So, it's important for people to hear that too, because if you're training for a race that's super technical, running on the road isn't the right choice. Like, it's okay to do your speed work on the road. I totally get that. But when you're doing your long runs, you need to find somewhere that's very similar to the same terrain you're running, or you might eat a little bit of humble pie with David. What about you? You got no business and the bear. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I got the Sherry's Run 5K coming up in September 14th, and then no business, or excuse me, the Bear, September the 21st, or no, it's the 27th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then in October, the end of October, I've got the no business, and then in December, my first last man standing race in Georgia, it's the Conquer.
Yep.
And so I'm looking forward to that. I've never done one of those. And I can't wait.
Conquer, man, that's going to be, I can't wait to follow you on that. I can't wait to see you at No Business, to be honest. I think that's going to be fun. I think you're going to enjoy that because you're going to come back a much different runner to No Business. I think that's going to be fun for you.
Yeah.
You got a goal?
sub 24. Hopefully I can do that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you just never know. So, yeah, it'd be nice to get the trifecta of buckles.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I think you can do it. I mean,
Yeah,
you ran sub 24 at Pinhoti, so
yeah,
you can do it at no business.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What about you, with Hody? What's your goal there? I'm just curious. Or do you
I
have a
have
goal
no
or?
idea, dude. I've not even thought about that one yet.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my goal at Yeti. It's less than 15 hours.
Wow. What is that split per mile?
So I did the 50 miler, you know, 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I did I started out at like a 7. I ran some a little bit less than 7, but I held that for the most part. Um, until about mile 46, and then I started getting a little wrecked. So I think I went too fast. But for the 100 miler, it's going to be a little different because I've got to I've got to be able to manage going back up. So that's the difference. Is with the 50 miler, I got to run down, and then you do an out and back. But with the 100 miler, I'm going down all the way back up and then back down. So my goal is to save energy going up to where I can actually run that consistently, but also have enough energy when I hit that third lap, when I'm coming back down the hill, I want to be able to just let go and roll with it. So it's going to be it's not going to be an evenly split race because I'm probably going to, my first lap down is probably going to be slower than my third lap down is what I'm hoping. But we'll see. I think it's what, a little less than an 8-minute pace or right at an 8-minute pace to do that. I got to remember. I looked it all up the other day, but I forgot. But I'm trying
Gotcha.
not to focus on that right now. I've just got to I got to keep getting faster and keep working on it. And, we were able to execute exactly what we wanted to do at Yeti 50. So I just got to make Yeti 100 now, be able to do it. So I couldn't have held, I mean, to be honest with you, I couldn't have held what I ran at Yeti 50 for the 100. But obviously that was a much different pace. That was a 6.5. I ran that in 6.5 hours. And at that level of conditioning, I couldn't have held that for 100 miles. There's no way. I crashed at mile 46. And it was all I could do I was like running, looking behind me, but there was nobody behind me. I kept looking behind me, kind of like you for the Cherokee. You're like, oh no, please don't pass me. I got 4 miles left. Um,
Yeah.
but it was fun, but it was also still humbling because like those last 4 miles, I went faster than my pace because I felt good, but I also didn't go crazy with it because I knew what was at the end, and I was just a little bit off, and those 4 miles caught me. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, 100 miles is completely different. If I can execute and do everything, we'll see. But at the same time, that's also a weird time for weather.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
it could be an absolute weird, like crazy hurricane again, like it was that one year, or it could be absolutely beautiful. Who knows?
Last year was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
But the previous years when Yeti cane happened and Mary got hit with that tree, so
Well,
we'll see.
hopefully all is good. Yeah.
Hopefully this year's
You never
nice.
know.
Well, I can't wait to see you at No Business. The sub 24. That's an awesome goal, and I think you have the capability and the conditioning to do it. I mean, you're in shape, so the most important thing you can do is just stay healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. And hopefully it'll all pan out. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, Matt, dude, thank you so much for re-recording the podcast, and thank you for taking more time out to spend with us. But just so thankful that you found us in East Coast Adventures and the podcast,
Absolutely.
and I think it's pretty cool that you find us through Corey. You run the race. You started listening to the podcast. Now you're on the podcast, and you're just an awesome guy, and you've been through a lot. And you've handled that adversity in the most impressive way possible. And, you're still upbeat and very humble about it. And I just love it, dude. It's it's very special to see that, and not a lot of people would ever understand what all you've been through and how much this means to you to be able to get to do this again, because I'm sure at one point you felt like it was all taken from you. But here you are doing what you love. Your family's getting to see you do it, and you're having success.
Yep.
You're winning, and you're staying healthy, and not the winning success, but just the fact that you're able to do what you want to do and you're hitting the goals you want to hit. That's success. That's like, that's the thing, is like, you want to be better. You want to be the best. You don't want to be it doesn't matter if you're the best in the race. You want to be the best for you. And that's what you're doing. And I love to see that. And it's just like when we talk about no business, you're not saying I want to win the race. That's not your goal. Your goal is to be better than you were the last time. And that is sub 24, because you want that buckle. If it goes even better than that, great. If it goes worse, you're going to fight tooth and nail to finish. So I love that. And, we can see that in you. And I think it's really cool. So I can't wait to see you roll through it at no business.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Definitely really encouraging hearing that from you guys. Looking forward to seeing you at Duncan Ridge.
Yes,
I
sir.
guess Duncan Ridge.
Duncan Hollow.
Duncan Hollow. Screwed it up.
And you just keep thinking about the Fortenberry Challenge there. You let us know when that comes to play.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well,
For sure.
take care, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We appreciate you.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you so much. Y'all have a good one. Yep.